I think it's just normal for me to feel like I need to have it all together, even more so because of the colour of my skin, because I'm an Aboriginal woman, because my kids are Aboriginal. There's always the fear there that, your child could be removed. Physically, we need to have it all together, because if we don't, that doesn't look good.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Motherhood Made Magic podcast. Today I'm speaking with Tanieka. Tanieka is an Aboriginal woman from the Wiradjuri nation. She is a mother of two boys, aged 5 and 2, and is pregnant with a baby girl due in September. Congratulations. Tanieka is the owner, founder and creative director of Yaali Creations, which creates Aboriginal learning resources for young children and families. And I'm really honoured that she's taken the time to join us here for a chat. So welcome, Tanieka.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and a little bit daunting, but out of my comfort zone, but yeah, we'll get there.
You're kind of popping your cherry on the podcast thing today, but I think it will be the first of many, because what you do is just so valuable, and I hope that we can spread your message far and wide. So firstly, this is a podcast about motherhood. I'd really like to know what it was like for you becoming a mother.
For me, I was quite young. So I had my first when I was 9, just turned 19. And I kind of have always done something creative. I've had that creative spark, and I've always tried to have something like that. So then when I become a mother, I kind of had to step away from that for that period of time. And I was okay with that. And I was ready, and I stepped into motherhood 100%. And I was ready to take it on. And I loved becoming a mother. And then we actually had a miscarriage at 18 weeks after our firstborn. And then, we went on to have our second little boy. And I was 21 when I had him. So quite quickly, quite young. I had to grow up quickly. But there's decisions that I would then make back then that I may not agree with now. We moved quite a lot as well for my partner's career and his football career. So we actually lived in Canberra. So we then moved to Newcastle, and then now we live in Sydney. So we live on Darrell country in Sydney. So we've done a lot of moves. And then somewhere in the midst of that, I've had a little business. I actually used to make cakes and desserts when my kids were really quite young. So I've always had something creative to try and focus on. Becoming a mother, I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I think I'm just trying to find my groove in the business world, in the working world, somewhere alongside having young kids as well.
I feel that's where I'm at, and I entered motherhood 9 years older than you, and I'm just in awe of anyone that can be holding it together, doing it young, because it does force you to grow up quickly. But I think I did more growing up in this first 2 years of having a baby than I did in the 9 years between 19 and 28 years old. So where I sometimes feel like I missed that career boat and we missed the first home buyers boat and all those boats that then we've jumped into that parenthood quite early, but I wouldn't change it for a thing. And that just means that I'm playing catch up now with getting our first home, and with my business stuff, I'm really just poking along and just trying to get it done at my own pace. And then my kids just come first. So my kids are first and the business is sort of after that. I feel like I should be further along than where I am, but then I think, you know what, I've got young kids and this is my focus right now, and my career can come later. Like, I am only 24 and we are due with our third. So I think I've still got years to start my career and figure out what I really want to do. Yeah. And in some ways you might feel like you're going a roundabout way on your career, but a lot of the women that I'm speaking with are sort of telling me that when they have their kids in those first couple of years while the kids are young, that's when they actually figure out what their passion is and where they want to spend their time. So they might have built up this career, but a lot of the time they just end up leaving it and doing something else because they finally realize that following their heart is the way to go. So you might have just skipped that early patch of time anyway.
Yeah, that's what I feel. And I didn't spend that time going to uni or studying or anything like that. So I didn't actually get that time to invest into that. But yeah, you're right. It's probably a blessing in disguise, and I've probably missed that. And I've found my passion now with Yaali and kids resources. And I think as my kids will grow, that may grow in a different direction. While they're young, it's based around young kids resources, but like in 5 years' time, that may change and it may go in a completely different direction. I'm not sure. It's just whatever's in my brain at the time.
I can see how what you're doing could really grow into a suite of resources for across the whole childhood spectrum of age.
And that's my goal later on. I really do want to expand across all that age and have older kids. And I used to work in schools with young teenage Aboriginal kids, and I've ran young women's programs, and I've also worked in Koori preschools. So I have worked in that spectrum of ages. So I would love to expand my resources across all different age groups.
It sounds like you've got so much wisdom to bring from all of those parts of your life and those places that you've worked at. When you're speaking about Yaali, I'm familiar with what it is that you make and what you do, but can you explain what it is and when it came to come into your life?
Yeah. So Yaali is derived from the word Yalabilanya, which is actually a Wiradjuri word that means to learn. My partner and I quite often have trips back to Canberra, where we originally come from. And in the car, these conversations would always come up about, I could do this and I could do that. And my creative mind would just be going crazy in the car. And the kids it was in the middle of COVID, and the kids are actually both home. They weren't in daycare or preschool or anything like that. And I think for me, the dreaming stones were the first thing to come about. And I thought, what's something that I could engage them with culture at home? And a basic tool for me was, the symbols, teach them symbols in art that we use in art all the time. And then the stones come about. So it was really the stones before it was Yaali. And that was basically just because I had kids at home and trying to find a way to entertain them at home. They weren't at school. And so that really was the first thing that come about. And I thought, maybe I need to get a business name. So then I researched and found a word that I loved, and we went with that. And it was Dreaming Stones for nearly a whole year. It was just the Dreaming Stones, and they were so popular. And I was actually on the back foot all the time because I had so many orders for them. So it was just them, and I was at the point where I couldn't catch up. It was just them, and I had the kids at home. And so I finally got the kids in daycare, and then I sort of thought, what can I do next that maybe suit better towards my younger son? Because he was quite little, the stones didn't fit for him. He put them in his mouth, he'd throw them, like they just weren't perfect for him. As a lot of other kids, they're not perfect for all kids. So then the puzzle come about. So it's sort of been, Yaali's journey is kind of been my journey in the last year, even as a parent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And I hear you about just finding your way with what bits you need at what point in time for what child. The Dreaming Stones are kind of like, if you hold your thumb and your first finger together, that circle there, is that about the size that the Dreaming Stones are?
Yeah. So that's about the size. They do range though. So some of them may be smaller, some of them may be bigger. So yeah, for my youngest, they just weren't a good fit for him at that age, and that's why I've always said at least 3 and up, because they are a tweaking hazard.
And you hand paint all of those, don't you? I think I saw a graphic on your Instagram that you'd painted 7,000 stones, something like that.
So my partner actually, so he would go to work in the day. He has football as well, so that's his after hours thing that he does. So football training the Arbos, and the kids would be in bed, and we'd sit up all hours of the night, and he would actually sand the rocks, and then I'd be painting them. And then the next day I'd symbol them, and then the next day I'd dot them, the next day I'd lacquer them. So it was like a week process, and without him I really couldn't have done it. He helped me so much, and there was many late nights over last year. It slowed down now, thank God, but last year it was really busy and late. There was so many late nights, and yeah, it was crazy.
It's quite a process, but they are so beautiful. And I actually haven't ordered a set yet. I was one of those people that went to look for them, and they were already up to like 3 months to pre-order sort of thing.
Yes.
But I understand that you started off making the puzzles because that might be something that's more geared towards your younger child, and they're about the bush tucker side of things, aren't they?
So it's really basic. A lot of my resources, it's really just scraping the surface. There's so much knowledge you can then look in after as well. Like, it's really just scraping the surface, and it's basic knowledge to us and to me. But these are things that I want parents to learn along the way as well while they're teaching their kid. Even myself as an Aboriginal woman, there's still things that I'm learning along the way. I'm still trying to teach my kids little bits of language and things like that. So I thought, this could be for everyone, and they can learn together with their kids. And that's why I always say learning together through play. So it's adults learning, it's kids learning, and they're learning through play with their children.
Which I think is what we're doing all of the time. But being able to have a tool that injects some of the things that we see as valuable but maybe aren't able to execute without that resource from you.
And then with the resources, I always try and have some information behind it. So with the stones, you've got the information card. With the puzzle, you've got an information card. There's always information behind it. And that's probably more for the adult to sort of know the basics of it. And it's a kid's toy, it's a tool, it's a resource, but there is that information there for an adult that may not know that. And it's all about learning for me, and I want everyone to learn the basic knowledge. And then if they want to dig deeper, they can. The option's there. It's just really scraping the surface of so much information that could be.
Yeah, my mind is swimming with just the depth of information that is hidden or lost or just disregarded because of the white privileged glasses of the school systems and all of the other systems that we operate within. Yeah, I know your aim starts off really being to teach your own kids, but I just am really thankful that you're doing this for me to be able to teach my kids the bits that we didn't get.
Well, no, and then I didn't really either. Like, I was privileged to go to a career preschool myself as a kid. When we lived in Newcastle, my son went to a what we call preschool up there, and they were great. Everything was culture. I loved it. And then we moved here, and our career preschool was a little bit far away for me to travel every day, so he didn't actually get to go to a career preschool. And I think for me as well, I've seen that the preschools, the schools, the mainstream do lack the basic knowledge and the resources and the learning tools available all the time, if that makes sense. And I've only sort of been in my box as well. Like, I worked in a career preschool, and I've seen that. And when I see snippets of mainstream school and mainstream preschools, I think that there could be a little bit more. Yeah,
it's probably something that's brought up on, for want of a better word, like a special occasion day, but it's not just part of the standard curriculum. Like for the AFL, how they have the Indigenous round, and the NRL does a similar thing and that sort of stuff, but it's not always just a normal part of it. It's kind of almost an afterthought rather than just being we all need to know this stuff.
Yeah, for the Koori preschool, it is a normal thing. All the Koori preschools that we have been a part of, that is the normal everyday stuff that they do. And I would just love to see even just one activity that just sits there and can be done, I think would be great. And that's part of the reason why I did the stones and the puzzle, and then there's the cards as well. They're things that could just sit in a preschool room and the child can go and play with them when they please. And I don't want to shove it in your face, if that's the word, and say, oh, do this, do this, do this. I want it to be available for you to come and do it when you're ready. Come and do it. Come and learn. Yeah, that's my approach.
Which is the way that kids learn anyway. They're going to go and scope out whatever is of interest to them at the time. And then when it's not interesting, they'll go away, and it might not be interesting for 2 more months, but when they come back to it, they'll be really engaged in it and just take it in.
Exactly.
So can you tell us about the cards that you mentioned, and also have you started supplying some of these to preschools or to educational centres?
So the purpose of the cards, they're similar in a way. I would say the closest thing I can think that they would be similar to is like charades. So they are all acted out, sounded out cards. And I've really tried to keep them different. So I had the stones to learn the symbols, I had the puzzle to learn the bush tucker, and that was aimed at younger kids. But older kids, with that bit of information, they're old enough they can learn that actual information about those bush tuckers. Where the cards were completely different, and yeah, they're all sound and movement based off Aboriginal culture. So there's things to do with boomerang throwing and painting ochre on your face and on your skin, and things like that, shake a leg. And then there's things, Australian animals as well. So it's all sound and movement. There might be some things that you can sound out. There might be some things that you have to actually get up and move. And then there's some things there where you can jumble it together and make it fun and do it in a group activity, or you can do it one-on-one. And that's things that I've done with my boys, both together and individually. So yeah, they're a little bit different, but yeah, that's what I hope for my resources to be. Every single one I want to be slightly different and have a completely different purpose. So
I can see how it would actually be a really fun way to make it a multi-generational activity as well, for the kids to be able to pick a card for Nan and Pop. And it's actually really similar to some different like icebreaker and warm-up activities that I've done.
It is.
With older adults, like in mainstream and working in Aboriginal community, to get everyone up and moving and involved. And it is so much fun. So much fun. Yeah,
and that's another, all of my tools as well and resources I always have as an activity that can be done is tell a story. So everything you can tell a story with it. So the stones, you can line them up, you can tell a story. The puzzle pieces, you can tell a story with them. The cards, you can pull them out and you can line a story up and you can tell it, act it out and you can tell it. You can dance it out, you can tell it. So yeah, telling stories and storytelling is massive in Aboriginal culture and every day for us. So I want that to be pushed across as well. My resources is big storytelling. So yeah.
Well, you're going to have to get used to doing a whole lot more podcasts if storytelling's your jam. So I'm trying not to gush too much, but I am just really impressed at all that you are doing and that you have created at such a young age. And before I get to my final question, I wanted to just take a step back and check my white privilege for a moment and ask you, I think motherhood is hard enough as it is already. I think there's a lot that's going on in our whole modern Australian culture that is sort of setting women up against this ideal of the perfect mother. But when you imagine what the perfect mother is, the perfect mother on all of the ads on TV and any kind of promotion and what people might imagine, like the school P&C mum or whatever, the image that I generally get is of a white mother. What have you experienced purely because of being an Aboriginal woman that I haven't had to face in my time as a mother?
I can think of experiences where I've felt a certain way. Being a young Aboriginal mother at 19 years old, my partner was also Aboriginal, even just to go to the hospital and give birth, I don't know why, but it was a daunting experience because I think I felt like it was more daunting because I was Aboriginal, because I was young. Not so much the second time round. I think the first time round was, there was that hidden anxiety, if you like. I'm not sure how to explain it, but
I think there's an underlying, this is my outsider's perspective, but I feel that there is a very justifiable underlying feeling of distrust with a system that is historically set up by a government that has been really awful to your people.
With my first, I went through mainstream. Maybe that's why I had that feeling, but I was with the mainstream maternity. All my antenatal appointments were mainstream. My second, I was in Newcastle and I went through an Aboriginal maternity unit.
Is that Birrelly?
Original. Yeah. So that was great. And the fear, even after the support that I had from there, that was really, really great. And then at the same time this round, so time I go through Thorough, and they're great. I think maybe I haven't really had that feeling these 2 times around, but my first one, definitely, I don't know if it was because I was mainstream or I didn't feel overly supported as a young Aboriginal mother before or after birth, like during pregnancy or after. And then I think as well, you've always got that fear that your child might be removed from you for whatever reason. And I feel great as a mother, and I feel like I could do a better job on days, and some days I think, I didn't do enough that day, or I'm sure many other mothers would, but there's always the fear there that, your child could be removed if you don't do that. And there is that fear there. I think, but even more so, with my first, those feelings were there. And I think that's probably because I didn't go through an Aboriginal maternity unit. I didn't feel like I had support after. The fear of like doctor's appointments, like if my child has bumped their head and I have to take the doctor's appointment, are they going to think that I did that? Are they going to take my child because of that? That is a massive fear for me, having my child removed for whatever reason, even though I know there's no reason that they would need to take my child. Yeah, that's just a fear I think I have there, that maybe, I don't know, maybe I feel like, and I have worked in that space as well, where I've seen a lot of Aboriginal kids in care as well. So I think, and a lot of family members as well, children in care and things like that. So for me, I think that's the fear there, even though there's no reason for me to feel that way. There is, a little bit there in the background. So
I think there's a reason for you to feel that way, but it's not anything to do with yourself and your actions as a mother. And so there's potentially always this internal struggle of feeling like you have to do more to prove yourself than someone who is white.
I feel like I should have it together more and not a hair out of place in my life, if that makes sense. I think physically we need to have it all together, because if we don't, that doesn't look good.
Yeah, like if I'm at the park with my blonde kid and she's running around with only a nappy on and she's got messy hair and she's got food all over her face.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone's going to look at me and say, oh, it's a hard day. Whereas if the same's happening for you, someone might look at you and think that you're neglecting your child.
That's exactly, you just hit the nail on the head. That's exactly how I feel. And
it must be exhausting.
Oh, it is. It really is. And I think it's so far in the back of my mind that I don't actually realise that it's a fear some days, and for appointments and for things like that. I think it's just normal for me to feel like I need to have it all together, even more so because of the colour of my skin, because I'm an Aboriginal woman, because my kids are Aboriginal.
Yeah, just like a heightened level of arousal or anxiety about it all the time.
Yeah. But definitely more so for my first.
Yeah, it really struck me. I went to see the Birth Time documentary. I don't know if you've seen it, but there was an Aboriginal woman in that who mentioned she also had a late miscarriage, and she was in hospital, and her partner was there too, and she didn't feel supported by what was happening around her. But what she said in the documentary was she was actually glad that her partner didn't question or become pushy about her care, because she feared that they would brand him as violent and remove him from the space altogether. Yeah,
and that really is a feeling even for my first. I actually had a hemorrhage after my first, and being young, that wasn't even something I realised could happen. Maybe I didn't research into labour properly, but I didn't even realise that could happen. So probably 30 minutes after I hemorrhaged, and we were kind of rushed away into, after it all happened, rushed away into like a shared room, and he was kind of told, all right, you need to leave now, off you go, like. And he was the same, a bit pushy, like, well, hang on, there's the other families for the other lady here, so can I just stay until they leave? She's just had a traumatic experience. And he was pushy, and I was the same, like, just leave it, don't worry about it, don't be pushy, don't push against, because that was my fear, that he may seem violently may seem like too much. Like, so that was definitely one of my fears as well for my first. Second time round was a breed that was water birth, so there was no problems, and I definitely didn't get the same feeling that time. Yeah, and my mum has always been in with my labours as well, so there was more than enough support visibly for me, and I felt I was supported enough by family and things like that. But yeah, firstborn experience was one to remember.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's probably not the easiest thing to reflect on, but I think it's something that I need to be aware of, and other mothers need to be aware of too, and just really highlights the difference that culturally appropriate continuity of care pre and postnatally really provides, how much better that sets you up to feel confident in your mothering. And
it works, because I've had my first I didn't have any support like Aboriginal maternity care or post care or anything like that. Second I did, and second time I felt like I could handle it all. I was fine, more than enough support. So I think it's really, really important. And then this third time around as well, I think it's great. I think it's really important that support that we need as well.
What is your vision, Tanieka, for life as a mum of 3 with a business that will tick along as it needs to, as an outlet for you? Where do you see life taking you and Yaali over the next few years?
So the next couple of months, I'm really trying to put my head down and get some resources out. So then when baby comes, they're out, they're released, and I'm hoping they can just sell in the background while I focus on baby in those early few months. That's my ideal plan. And then this year we're really trying to focus on buying our first home. So hopefully we'll be buying that hopefully before baby's here, but if not, towards the end of the year. So that's another thing that we're really trying to focus on. I have a lot of things in my brain and my mind for Yaali and what's to come and what could be. But for me, I'm just so caught up in motherhood and little kids and all that right now that I can't put 100% like I want to into it. And there's so many ideas I've got and so many things that I'd love to do, but it's really time for me and really cash flow. I'm just trying to do things when I can with what I can. I never want to take a business loan out. I never have. It's all just self-funded itself, and whatever I've made, I put back in. And so it's all, there's big plans for Yaali, but it's just one step at a time. And I really just want to get through the next few months, and then hopefully once baby's here, it'll self-manage for a bit with me in the background, and maybe my partner for the first few weeks, he can manage the emails and the website and things like that. So but there's definitely big plans, and I have lots to come in the year, and I do want to grow it in a different direction as well, but still maintain my resources there. My kids and my family are that priority, and somewhere in the midst of that, I'm just trying to tag Yaali along. And
I think sometimes when you're so pushed for time, it makes the time that you do put into your business so potent that you actually get just as much done as if you didn't have kids and you were working 40 hours a week in it, because you've had all of the planning time and you know exactly what you got to do, and you just get in there and you bang it out and then sub back in to the rest of your life.
I've got my little time set when baby's due, and then those things will hopefully be out and sorted. And what will come after that, it may not be until next year then after that, and I'll just have the resources that I've got for now. But I'm really happy just to poke along at my own pace, and I don't want to overwhelm myself with 3 young kids and with a business and all those other things, and trying to buy our first home. And
It sounds like there's a lot going on.
Oh, there is. So I just want to poke along and do all a learning experience for me. Like sometimes I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll learn it.
Tanieka, where can we find you if we want to get our hands on some Yaali stuff, if we want to get it for ourselves, donate it to our preschools, daycares, if we want to stock it somehow, how can we find you best?
Yep, so on my website, www.yaalicreations.com.au, that's the website on there. You can purchase my resources through there. And we also have an Instagram and a Facebook. For things like wholesale orders, I do wholesale orders out to childcare centres and big childcare centres and other resource businesses as well. So they're things that I do, and you can just send me an email from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And good luck with baby.
That's okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you love this episode as much as I loved recording it. If you wish, you can subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on your podcast platform. And if you love my work, please be sure to follow along with me on social media at annacusack postpartum on Instagram and Facebook, and grab my book from www.annacusack.com.au/book. Until next time, bye.